Bills Pod Squad is presented by the New York Lottery. The new seasonal scratch-off games from the New York Lottery are here. With prizes up to $500,000, they're the perfect gift. Head to your nearest retailer and gift one today. You must be 18 years or older to purchase. Please gift responsibly. On this week's episode, ESPN NFL analyst Mina Kimes joins Kim and I to discuss why she thinks the Bills are a top 3 team, how she's never seen a QB improve from year to year like Josh Allen has, and she'll give us a couple of her best Bills analogies. And Kim comments on welcoming Bills Mafia back for the first home playoff game. All that and more on this week's Bills Pod Squad. Get ready because we start right now. Welcome into Bills Pod Squad, presented by the New York Lottery. Maddy Glab and Bills owner and president Kim Pegula here as your host. Bills Pod Squad is a podcast that takes you all over the NFL. And today we have ESPN NFL analyst Mina Kimes on with us as she talks everything Bills and gets into what's exciting her the most about the postseason. Kim, we just found out there's going to be fans in Bills Stadium for the first home playoff game. This is incredibly exciting news. And I know it's been an ongoing conversation just to even get fans into the stadium from the start. You've seen other teams and stadiums successfully have fans in the stands. So I was really hoping it was just a matter of time until the Bills had fans in the stands. And I've got to say this too. Steve Tasker, in the beginning of the season, kind of wrote this into existence in that he was like, I don't think we're going to have fans at all. I'm hopeful that we will, but I'm just envisioning having fans in the stands for a home playoff game. And boy, was he right, because we'll have 6,700 fans cheering their butts off. And I know this is something that has taken a lot of work, a lot of communication between several different parties. A lot of heads have come together to be able to make this work when you look at what's going to have to take place for everyone to get into the stadium safely. So how did this come together, and how pumped are you, Kim?
Yeah, oh, Maddy, listen, normally we have 70,000 fans in attendance on a normal game day, but to get 6,700, you would think it would be a lot easier. It definitely was not easy. Listen, this process started months and months ago, before we even knew if we were going to have a football season this year. And we have been working diligent with the state. There's a team here. I got to give them all the credit. They've been on the calls on a weekly basis. We've put together our complete plan when the regular season started, just in case we had fans, to keep our fans safe, follow all the NFL guidelines, the state guidelines, the CDC. So we had a plan in place of how we could keep our fans safe throughout the season. But unfortunately, we were still not able to have any fans at all. And then in the last hour, and honestly, I think a lot of it had to do with the success that our team is having, to have this momentous game where we haven't been in the playoffs and hosted a game in 25 years. I think the governor heard us long and really loud that, this is not something that happens every day. And that unfortunately, this is in a year where we're not having any fans. And what can we do? How can we work together to pull this off, to get fans in our stadium? And we settled on a 6,700 number, which basically is a little bit less than 10% of capacity. So still keeping safe, still providing a good fan experience for those that are able to attend, a big crowd for our team. I mean, listen, I've been to games where they've had 5,000, 10,000 fans in attendance. Those fans, it does matter to the team. There is a noise and a level of atmosphere that even at those limited quantities, that it's there. And I know our team is pumped up to be able to have fans in the stadium. So a lot to do, Maddy. A lot to do.
I know, Kim. Do you even have time to do the rest of this podcast, or you want to hop off now and keep planning for everything that you have to accomplish?
You know what, though? This is one of the ways that I can talk to our fans on a much wider scale that takes way less time per fan to do this. So I feel like I'm saving time by being on the podcast. But I think the governor said this. This is a demonstration project. This is a monumental project that has never been done before. We are testing close to 7,000 plus fans, as well as game day staff, 72 hours before a game. And this
That
is
is a huge number. Am I gonna have to start testing people with the amount of hands-on that will probably have to go into testing more than 7,000 people?
that is why we are not Buffalo Bills. Like, we play football. We are not the testing provider. So thankfully, the help of BioReference, who has been the NFL official league partner that has been testing our players and our staff since day one, every day, 7 days a week. So they are going to be the ones, along with additional staff, of course, that are going to be doing all the testing. And so confident with a 24-hour guaranteed turnaround time. They've really been a great partner of ours, and we expect great things from them. And really, if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't been able to do this and have this. Listen, I'm a realist. I know, Maddy, there are, listen, 70,000 fans. We're starting with our season ticket holders. Not everyone's going to be able to get in.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, at the end of the day, are there going to be issues that we haven't thought of? Are there going to be challenges that we are still navigating, or answers that we don't even know yet that are going to happen? Certainly. I mean, they really will. And so that's why, it's kind of bittersweet. Love having the fans there. Not everyone can be there. And how do you choose which fan can and can't go? So, we are starting with our long tenured season ticket holders, and starting that list. We are very hopeful that there will be many more home playoff games for all our fans to attend.
Yes.
Whether it happens, game 2 if we're so lucky, or next year. So I know it's been 25 years, but I am just very hopeful. I think we're in the right direction. Seeing what we saw from this team this year, that we've got a lot of playoff games in our future that we can look forward to. It's just 1 year, and there's many more years. I think we're going to be back in the spot. So no guarantees, but like I said, that's the positive thing to look about if you are not one of those that can end up being at the game. But yes, fans in our stadium, at Bills Stadium, for a playoff home game in 25 years. Like,
can you believe it?
Yes.
I think that's a great perspective to think about it in. Like, of course, there's going to be some broken hearts who have some great stories as to why they deserve to be in Bills Stadium for the first home playoff game in 25 years. But if you're not able to be there, and if you don't get your name called in the lottery pool, or how it's going to work out with season ticket holders first, would you rather have fans or not have any fans? And I think the answer is we'd rather have fans, because at least some people will get to experience it, and it's going to work wonders for our players. I can bet that these fans are going to be the loudest fans out of any NFL team, just because they've had to wait the longest to be in the stadium, and it's a playoff game. So I know they're going to show up. I know they're going to be loud. And I also know they're hopefully going to be safe and smart about what they choose to do the weeks before, the days before, and how they choose to wear their masks, socially distanced, like you said, all the things that we know have been working.
And listen, we appreciate the support that we've seen from our fan base here locally in Buffalo, but even around the country. And that is where, we want to provide them a place for them to celebrate. But we also want to make sure that they realize, like, listen, the protocols are in place for a reason. And for us to really move forward, we still need them. So still no tailgating, whether you're at the game or you're not. Just discouraging, kind of really any of those mass gatherings. I know you're going to want to kind of have that, big wild card game party. But we're just saying, listen, for us to really keep moving forward in the right direction, we just ask you to stay at home, to wear your mask if you can't attend the game. Before the game, like you said, before the game, during the game, after the game. This is not just a one game thing. This is just something we need to be very diligent about, get our number of cases down, give us the best opportunity to have every fan be able to come to a Bills home game, playoff game. So.
And I know everyone is hoping that this can continue for the second home playoff game. We're just going to say there's going to be a second one, but we're going to see how things go for that first home playoff game, and then make the decision to, yes, more fans can come, or the 6,700 number applies for the second home game, playoff game.
Yes. Yep. Well, I won't be making that decision, but yes.
Yeah, we wish you were.
Yeah. Um, but yes, that's what the plan is now, is that we're going to be prepared to have another home game, but no guarantees. But that's what.
Definitely don't want to guarantee anything, but we can
Right.
just hope that all of that stuff happens. The Bills win their first home playoff game. Everything goes perfectly. Everybody gets tested. There's no issues with everything that has to happen. And then same thing happens for the second home playoff game.
Who are we going to play, Maddie? I don't know.
Ooh, that's a good question. I can't wait to find out. We are days away from knowing, and it's been eating me up. But speaking about the first round of the playoffs, I think we look back on 2020. I know all of us are looking back on this year as the new year is right around the corner, and we're thinking about how it's been filled with so many twists, so many turns, so much heartbreak, and a lot of tears probably for all of us, and just living through a pandemic and living a year that probably none of us wanted to live in a lot of different ways. But if you look at it in the lens of being a Buffalo Bills fan or the Bills owner, this year, even though it's been filled with challenges and hardships, like this has been such a happy and great year for the Buffalo Bills football team. It's been a year first for you as an owner. Two professional teams, you get an AFC East championship, home playoffs, a 12-win season, something that hasn't happened since 1993. You know, we sweep the Patriots. That hasn't happened since 1999. A legit chance to make a run in the playoffs. I mean, what comes to mind when you think of everything that had to happen and that took place in order for a football season to even begin on time?
You know what? I think back to being very practical and thinking back that this is why foundation is so important. The foundation that you lay, whether your personal life, your work life, or on a team, because you never know when these moments happen, right? You never know when your opportunity to win. You never know when the challenges are going to be there. But if you really have that foundation, and I think that's where, with the coaching staff, the consistency, I know Brandon Bean talks about, with the care of shaping this roster, and then just culturally, the foundation that has been laid. Listen, this didn't happen overnight. You really think about it. This is year 4, right?
Mm-hmm.
So all of that work in preparation for the opportunity, despite the challenges, I don't know. I think that, to me, that's what really speaks out to me, is that we were ready. We're ready. Doesn't matter if it's a pandemic or not. We're going to be ready regardless. And the pandemic only, is just a small bump, right? And in terms of our team's performance, it was just a small bump. Maybe in some ways you could argue that it may have helped to keep us focused, but at the same time, I think it's just a real testament to the foundation that has been built upon year after year, and the consistency and the bond that our players have with each other in this locker room.
Yeah, it's definitely been years in the making. And I think in a lot of ways, the pandemic has maybe helped bring this team a little bit closer together, just given what they have to sacrifice every single day. There's few people in this world right now that have to live through the protocols that they're living through right now. And I think how they can relate to each other on that regard, I think makes them feel like they're more connected. Even though this team is already so connected in the locker room, they have such a great bond. I think this has just helped them grow even closer together. But we've got a fan box that we need to talk about. It's our last fan box for home games this season. It's Cole Beasley. It's a little tie-dye red shirt. It says "Catch the ball, drop the beat." So we know that Cole loves to rap a little bit. He's got a couple albums, I want to say, and I think he's working on another one. But the stick figure is a microphone. So it's red tie-dye, pretty cool looking shirts. And we're sending all the healing vibes out to him too right now. We know that he's week to week with a leg injury. So we hope he can get back and be healthy before the season ends. But this box includes a Bills scarf from the Buffalo store. It's available at billsfanbox.com until Sunday, January 3rd at 11:59 p.m. And Proceeds benefit the Boys and Girls Club of Buffalo. So you're also donating to a good cause when you purchase the t-shirt. So pretty cool looking shirt, right, Kim?
What a year he's had. I mean,
I know he was 33 yards away from having an 1,000-yard season. I'm so bummed for him.
I'm telling you, listen, when did we trade for him, or we signed him as a free agent?
We signed him as a free agent from the Cowboys.
Right. Yeah. And so, and every year he's just gotten better and better. And this year has been a tremendous year for him. He is such a big part of our offense, and he has bailed us out of a lot of third downs throughout the season.
Yes.
So we wish him a speedy recovery. We're going to need him in the playoffs. And he's so important to this team. So, but his personality comes through in that t-shirt. So I've heard him singing, I've heard him rapping. So he's legit.
He definitely is legit. His lyrics are great. He dropped a song over the summer. I know he's working on a new album, but he got a little busy with football season. So hopefully that can come out at some point. But we love Cole Beasley. We love what he's done for this team this season. But let's get into that interview with Mina Kimes. Before we toss it over to Mina, the New York Lottery is giving away $50 worth of the new limited edition New York Series scratch-off tickets with a chance to win up to $1 million to one of our lucky listeners each week. Visit buffalobills.com/NYLottery or click on the link in the podcast description to enter now. All right, guys, here's our interview with Mina Kimes. Mina Kimes, thank you so much for coming on this podcast. You cover the NFL. You dip into every single team on NFL Live. I can't imagine just the work that goes into the preparation that you have to do to be able to talk so eloquently about every single team and have takes on every single team and in a witty way. You do it in a very witty way that I really appreciate. I think a lot of NFL fans do too. But let's start off with the Bills, since this is a Bills podcast. With the season that they're having, 12 wins so far, the most since 1993 for this team. They've hit several road marks this season, several milestones, several records have been broken. But what makes the Bills stand out amongst other NFL teams this season in your eyes?
Well, I would say a couple of things stand out. So a lot of us had the Bills winning the division before the season, but what I didn't anticipate, and I think most people who say they did anticipate are lying, was just the incredible rate of improvement that we've seen in the quarterback, Josh Allen. I mean, the leap he's made this season to being a top 5 quarterback by any metric, it's astounding. And the offense has been incredibly fun to watch. Brian Dable obviously has gotten a lot of praise from our show and others this season, but it's just fun because it's inventive. It's very modern. So for like football nerds like myself, it's been a really, really fun season to watch that offense. And then I would say the other thing that makes the team stand out as we look towards the playoffs and kind of think about matchups and Super Bowl, contenders, the Bills are very balanced, which is not something we said about this team we, meaning analysts, I think, said about this team at the beginning of the season. When the offense was really exciting and explosive, but at times the defense wasn't quite there with them. I think over the last few weeks, you've really seen this team achieve the level of balance you want going into the postseason. When we rank teams and think about, okay, can this team actually win it all? You look to the defense and some of the improvement we've seen there. And I think that's what makes the team stand out. It makes them a true contender.
So, if in the AFC conference, what team do you feel is the best matchup? Or what team do you feel like is going to be kind of really a challenge for the Bills to make it all the way to the Super Bowl?
What will come as probably no surprise to you guys is the Chiefs. And really, we've got the Chiefs. I keep saying we. I'll speak for myself here. I don't want to speak for my colleagues, including Bills pander Dan Orlovsky, who brandished the Bills Mafia flag on NFL Live. But I view the Bills and Chiefs as in a separate tier from the rest of the conference right now. And I actually had our fabulous Bills reporter, Marcel Louis-Jacques, on my podcast, the Mina Kimes Show, to talk about the Bills. And we found ourselves really identifying a lot of parallels between the teams and how explosive the offenses are and some of the things they're doing on offense and how difficult it is to defend all of the weapons that they have schematically, as well as defenses that, are not the calling cards of the teams, but do enough, I think, to support that level of offense. So I think that the Chiefs give the Bills the most competition, the Bills give the Chiefs the most competition, and we could be looking at sort of a track meet style playoff game, which frankly would be tremendously exciting as a fan of scoring.
Yeah, I remember listening to that podcast, and you and Marcel kind of agreed on, I don't think either team can stop either offense. I think it's just going to be whoever holds on to the ball for the longest and has the ball as the clock is ticking to 0 if it ends in regulation time, if it doesn't go into overtime. But yeah, that's kind of how I look at that game too. And I remember when the Bills played them earlier this season, it wasn't the best game for the Bills. That was that stretch where they had the Titans and the Chiefs, and it was kind of like, okay, this team is not playing up to their potential right now. But Josh Allen just spoke to the media, and he said those 2 games were a huge learning experience for our team. We were able to do some different things after that game, being able to watch tape and kind of dissect how the defenses played against us and how we defended those big offenses. And we were able to move on from that and get better. But I want to know where you think the Bills rank among other NFL teams. Do they fit in the top 3, top 4, top 5 conversation in your mind?
I think they're unequivocally in the top 3. So I go Chiefs, Packers, Bills, Saints, Seahawks. That's my top 5 right now. But man, it is. I actually would put the Packers in a similar sort of conversation as the Bills and the Chiefs in terms of teams where like the offenses are so explosive and difficult to stop right now. And there's been questions at various times throughout the season about defense. But I'd say 3, which is coming into the season, man, did anyone think that we'd even be saying that? I didn't see the Bills in terms of preseason rankings. Yes, we had them winning the division, but I didn't see this coming. So it's remarkable. I mean, the playoffs, anything can happen. You don't want to make any guarantees or sort of bold predictions, but I would, if I was a Bills fan, I'd be pretty optimistic.
Well, I am super excited, Mina, that you put the Bills ahead of your Seattle Seahawks. So as many of you know that many of our listeners know that you are a huge Seattle Seahawks fan. So just for you to hear you say that you put them ahead of them gives me a lot of joy. And listen, here in Buffalo, so much excitement. Not being able to host a home playoff game in 25 years. As a Seattle Seahawks fan, you haven't had to wait that long. So you can imagine the excitement that we have here in Buffalo. But being, like I said, I will take top 3 from you any day of the week. And like I said, especially above your favorite team, because I know you might be a little bit biased there, even as an analyst. But how did your love of Seahawks or love of football, like, just give us some background on how you got into sports?
Yeah, so I've always been a Seattle sports fan. So it's not just Seahawks, Mariners, Sonics, growing up, Washington football. But I didn't work in sports until a few years ago. I was actually a business reporter. I was an investigative reporter for Fortune magazine and then Bloomberg. And then ESPN hired me as an NFL writer in 2015. Was 2015? Yeah, wow. It's not that long ago, 2014 or 2015, I think. It was after Seattle won the Super Bowl. And that's kind of how I carved up my life there. And I was originally at ESPN writing profiles of NFL players, and then started doing more on the analysis side after about a year or 2 with my podcast and doing some radio. So it's actually not been that long. I've always been an NFL fan, but only been an analyst for a few years now. And I guess ESPN kind of took a risk on hiring me, bringing me over from the business world, because that was my background. But I think some of the skills are pretty similar.
Did you always want to work in sports? Was that something that you had your goals set on? Because I know you were an English major and you worked in investigative and in business journalism and reporting for, several years, and then you jump over the sports side. You hear about people doing that, but to jump straight into ESPN, I feel like is something that's very unique, especially for someone who maybe didn't see a future in sports.
No, yeah, I did not aspire to work in sports. It was just my hobby. I mean, honestly, it was just kind of like I was a business journalist, but spent all my free time watching football and on football message boards and football internet. And a real dream, I think, to make that jump. And I feel very fortunate. And very few people get to turn their passion into their job, right? And it's been crazy because people always ask me, okay, now that you cover it and you're doing analysis, do you find yourself in like less of a fan or enjoying it less? And no, absolutely not. Like, even if it wasn't my job, I would still probably watch and the sick amount of hours of football I do. I just wouldn't be taking notes the way I do now and then going back and watching the all 22. But I just truly love it so much. And to be able to have the time now, because in the past it was just like, okay, well, I'm spending my free time. Now it's my full-time job. So to be able to study for a living is just fantastic. I couldn't ask for anything more.
Any skills that you brought over from your previous job into sports?
Well, so being a business reporter, I spent a lot of time reading 10Ks and doing a fair amount of, I wouldn't say math, but working with numbers. And when I started covering football, I still really approach it from, I would say, an analytics friendly perspective. And a lot of the analysts and people in the football world who helped me early on were on that side of things, especially, not coming from being a player and having that sort of experience. It's been, I wouldn't say a way in, but it's been a way for me to look at the game and sort of provide a different perspective. And that's something I still do. And I think more people in our industry do now, blending that mix of analytics and tape study. So I think being sort of numerate coming into covering sports was helpful. And then the other thing is just asking questions. I was a business reporter, and I would say I still am driven by the same kind of questioning, whether it's back when I was a writer or now just looking at teams. If I don't understand something, the mindset is similar, even though the subject matter is very, very different.
You say you get to study for your job and watch tape and all 22, as you had mentioned. Where does your expertise come from? Because whether you're a male or female, everyone is very capable of learning the X's and O's about football and talking about them and being insightful and educated on the game of football. But it's not an easy route to take. It takes a lot of learning. It takes a lot of film. It takes coaching. It takes people in your corner who are willing to break things down and explain it to you. So where did that expertise come from? Because, Mina, when you talk about football, you sound like you have played the sport for a while.
Oh, thank you. Well, I'm far from an expert, but I'm lucky because I work with a lot and I work with people who have very specific expertise. So if I'm watching a game and I have a question about coverage, I'll ask, Ryan Clark, Dominic Foxworth. If I have a question about quarterback play and I'm watching a route concept and I don't quite understand it, I'll ask my colleague Dan Orlovsky. If I see something happening in the run game, I was watching Baltimore, New York yesterday, and I was like, I don't quite understand what's happening here with the blocking. Baltimore, it looks like different concepts. I'll ask Mike Golick Jr. as a former offensive lineman. And I'm so fortunate at ESPN to be able to lean on all these people with positional expertise who can explain to me and, okay, the guards, when he pulls like this, that's what's happening, and watch the tight end. And it's really fantastic. And I think something that, I would say anyone in our industry, but a lot of times with women too, we can be afraid to ask questions because I don't want to look stupid, but it's okay that I don't I'm not able to identify, exactly what's happening in coverage in real time. And if I ask the question, then the next time I can identify it, and I think that's pretty cool. So I'd say just being able, having access to these people and having a willingness to ask questions has helped a lot.
Well, can you give me the phone numbers of your staff there? Because I too have a lot of questions in live game moments. But unfortunately, I don't have that. I wish I did. They're all working. And so
Kim, you're not interrupting Brandon Beam in the middle of the game. You can't say, "Hey, Brandon, can you just break that down for me right now?" Or any of the scouts that you watch.
You don't understand how very tense things can be in that box on game day. And so it's like, I don't want to ask the question because then they're going to miss kind of what's happening on the field. So that's kind of the pressure that I'm under when I have a question. So if I could have some of her contacts and I can type questions, like that would relieve, Brandon and my husband and all the other ones that are in my box of me asking the questions directly to them during the game.
You should start texting the players on Mondays and Tuesdays when they're watching film. Like, "Hey, Josh, can you break down this film with me? I want to know what you were seeing in the game." See what he says.
No, because I want him to focus on the next game, as you know, always on. And I don't think Coach would be real thrilled if I took up Josh's time on explaining football to me. So, but like I said, it's being live at the game. It goes so fast. I was actually able to listen to on the headset. This was last season, one of our games at the end of the season, just to listen to what the coaches are talking through in the headset, on the bench, with a quarterback. It is so fast. It just really is. I don't think people realize the amount of decisions that have to be made in the amount of very little time that happens on a game day. Even though sometimes the games can seem very long. Yeah, live is pretty amazing.
It's crazy. And when you think about a quarterback, the difference between, like a quick release and a long, like a quarterback standing in play, it's a second, right? Like we were talking about quarterbacks who are getting the ball out quickly. We're talking about 2.5 versus 2.8 seconds normally. And I think sometimes I like, they don't use the skybox too, but when you see the field from the quarterback's perspective, you see how freaking difficult it is to play the position, pre-snap, post-snap, everything that's happening, the decisions made, going through your reads, and how quickly it all happens. It's remarkable. I find it crazy that anyone can play that position at a high level. It's easy for me to watch overhead later and say, "Oh, he had a guy wide open. Why didn't he hit Diggs wide open?" But in real time, it's very challenging.
Speaking of reads and checks, I think Josh Allen has grown tremendously in that area, as does any rookie quarterback from year 1 to year 3. Year 3 is the year people say you can tell if this quarterback has grown. You can tell if this quarterback is potentially going to be for real. As you get into year 3, you've had time, hopefully in the same system like Josh Allen has under Brian Daboll. That is not common in the NFL. You look at so many young quarterbacks and their success that is yet to happen. And it's oftentimes because they have a lot of different offensive coordinators or quarterbacks coaches. Josh Allen has been blessed with Ken Dorsey and Brian Daboll since he's gotten into the building. And I think that's helped his growth so much. But you look at a player who went from 52.8% completion percentage in 2018 to 69.1% completion percentage. Last season, it was 59%. So this dude has jumped 10 completion percentage points among a lot of other things. Right now, he has 7 franchise records that he's probably going to hold on to this season, which is incredible when you talk about a quarterback and we talk about all the things that happen in 2 seconds at the line of scrimmage. Have you seen a jump like this, Mina, since you've been covering the NFL in year 2 to year 3? And why do you think it's happened for Josh?
No, to answer your first question. This is statistically, everything about it is pretty unprecedented. It's frankly remarkable. And I think because it's so unprecedented, there's probably a number of reasons and factors that weigh into it that frankly, people should study as they're looking. And actually, we were talking about it because we're looking ahead to draft and prospects. And there's a worry almost that people think this is the norm, or that it's you can take a quarterback with, the sort of the raw physical tools that Allen had coming into the NFL and say, okay, great, look what he did. No, it's not normal. What's happening in Buffalo, it's not common. And I'd say, from the outside, Brian Dable, he's also grown as a play caller tremendously, and deserves all of the accolades he's getting for the way in which he's enabled and helped Allen. The talent, the team building was something, going into the season, I said that this is one of my favorite group of skill players, the wide receiver group. They're like a basketball team, just the complementary skill sets. We talk about on our show a lot how you can't really play man against Josh because Stephon Diggs is going to kill you. You can't play zone because Cole Beasley is going to find that soft spot. I've always loved John Brown as a player. I think he's fantastic and like that perfect complement to them as well. Gabe Davis looks like a gem as well, on top of all that, of course. So the addition of he really is. So the addition of Diggs, I think, really also, if we're going to talk about kind of things that have unlocked or contributed to that growth, but we can talk about all the factors around Josh, but the quarterback himself is the one who clearly put in the work and effort to make that sort of leap. And that's not something that's easily reproduced, frankly. So he deserves all of the credit for the jump, because when you watch, it's interesting because he makes throws that other quarterbacks, it's not that they won't or don't have the mental wherewithal. They don't have the physical gifts to do, frankly, on the field. And playing the position, it requires not only like a knowledge of, it's not just his brain, and that's something that's been fun to watch this year, sort of the way in which he's manipulating defenders, identifying disguised coverages, making the right reads, going through his progressions, but also an understanding of what your arm is capable of. And when you see those things come together the way they are right now in Buffalo, it's really fun to watch as a fan and analyst.
And Kim, we've talked about this before on the podcast. Just you make this selection, you get Josh Allen, and the franchise is riding on this quarterback. I feel like it's got to be kind of an exhale this season to be like, okay, we made the right choice in the draft by taking him among other quarterbacks in that year.
Listen, I wish I could say I knew all along 100% on draft day when we drafted Josh Allen that he was going to be where he is right now. I wish I could say that, but we know that wouldn't be true. But yes, it's certainly a collective sigh, because listen, the organization, even before we became owners, we've gone through this where you think you might have a franchise quarterback, or you do have a really good quarterback, but like it's really not enough when you're going against the Tom Brady's and the Aaron Rodgers and the Ben Roethlisberger's and all these other top quality. It's just not at that level. But like, what do you do, right? You're kind of in this middle of, well, we have a good quarterback that we might be able to do, but our team's not really bad enough to like really do a total remodel of the whole system. So it is it's a difficult place to be, but I think in year 3 where you're trying to figure out, okay, is he the guy? I'm happy that we don't have to have that debate as much anymore. I know there's other teams out there that are going to be having that debate. I'm glad we are not one of them this year. And we're ending 2020 soon. We're going into 2021, but I think, not to be boastful or anything, but I think 2020, the Buffalo Bills, Josh Allen is one of the top stories of the year. What other top stories would you say for 2021 and going into 2021, what are you looking forward to?
Well, I think just for NFL purposes, Mahomes, Allen, Rodgers, Wilson. I mean, I agree with you, Josh. The improvement, the leap, what we've seen out of Josh Allen is absolutely one of the defining stories of the NFL season. I would say also, Aaron Rodgers, what he's doing in Green Bay this year, it invites a similar kind of level of how did this happen? It's not, we know it's Aaron Rodgers, so it's not the same like, how did this happen? But there are really interesting things happening in Green Bay and sort of decisions they've made as an organization that I think are fascinating in their own way. So I would say that's one for the playoffs that we're pretty excited about. And, I think going into this season, Tom Brady going to Tampa Bay was sort of the big, wow, what is this going to look like story? And it's been a bit of a roller coaster. So I would say that's going to be there's going to be a lot of intrigue around that in the playoffs, him, Bruce Arians, that Tampa Bay defense. Since you asked about the whole year going beyond the playoffs, I think we're all already very intrigued by the draft. Obviously, Buffalo, you have now the benefit and the gift of not having to worry about the quarterback position, but there are a lot of teams that, whether it's through the draft or free agency, have that spot to fill. So we're already kind of looking ahead, and there are wins and losses now that will forever define the futures of these franchises, including one in your own division, which, was, of course, I'm talking about the Jets, we thought was headed towards a certain outcome in 2021. And now it appears that's not the case. So there's a lot of questions around that team and then the top of the draft.
This last week of regular season is certainly a lot of storylines going on there. I don't know. I don't remember, at least in recent years, of this last week, like you said, defining so many teams. So many things have to happen for certain teams to be in the playoffs, the matchups. It's a little bit wild. I have a hard time keeping track of it all. Of course you have help.
No, it's crazy.
So what are you, what's this going into this next week? What are you most anxious to see what the outcome ends up being?
I mean, Miami Buffalo is one of the most interesting games of week 17, especially with the revelation that the Steelers are planning to sit some of their starters, including their quarterback, Ben Roethlisberger. Suddenly, the 2 and 3 seed are very much up in the air in the AFC, and it sort of feels like a bit of I don't want to say unintended consequence, but it is a consequence of the expansion of the playoffs and the decision to only give the outcome where only the 1 seed has a bye. Suddenly the incentives are very different for teams playing in week 17. And we're seeing that. And, this particular game between division rivals. So obviously, like I said, for Buffalo, the 2 or 3 seed, but then you're also, this is very much a Super Bowl contender. So there's considerations as to how much you play the starters, what happens depending on other outcomes. But then in Miami, you've got a team that's very motivated to win so that they can get into the playoffs and, made their decision to stick with their rookie quarterback over a guy who Buffalo fans know all too well, and Ryan Fitzpatrick. So there's a ton of drama and interest in that game. And you guys know Miami, they're tough out right now. It's a very good team. So I'd say that one really stands out. And then in the NFC, you've got an NFC West battle potentially for the playoffs between 2 teams that with the Rams, they're starting a guy who's never thrown an NFL pass, and John Wolford, who I watched calling the Rams preseason last year, versus an Arizona team that also desperately wants to win and get into the playoffs. So those are 2 games I'd say that I've really got my eye on in week 17. But of course, all of the outcomes are very much intertwined, and it is very hard it's already hard because you're like, okay, well, if the Bears win but then throw on top of that the fact that we don't even know who's playing in some of these games, on top of the COVID stuff, and it suddenly becomes very, very chaotic.
Sounds like it sounds like a
regular season, that we're getting to the last game of the regular season. It's been a tremendous lift for I know every club and the league, and I'm sure for all the media and the analysts out there. For us, I haven't seen Maddy in a while. It's just it has been a very challenging season, and for us and for the league, I give a lot of kudos to all the players and everyone. Yes, we have positive tests. We knew that was going to happen, but we've been able to cross our fingers, get through the regular season, be able to have a lot of great football games all season long. It's amazing that we're even here.
Mina, before we go, I've got a couple more questions for you. NFL Live is full of some characters. We know Dan Orlovsky has basically become a part of Bills Mafia in the last several weeks, and he rocked a Bills Mafia flag on air before Monday Night Football against the Patriots. Is he a member of Bills Mafia? When did this affinity begin?
You know, I'm glad you put it that way, because Dan has been a fan of, he's really enjoyed, like the rest of us, watching the Bills all season, and the offense in particular. But he's also positioned it as him against the world. It's like, Dan, I picked the Bills to win the division in the summer. Okay. So, you know, granted, I don't think all of us had the team as Super Bowl contenders, but it's not like this team came out of nowhere, Dan Orlovsky. That said, he is definitely in your guys' corner this postseason. I'll say that. So you do, I would say he's probably honorary Mafia. We'll give him that.
I love it. We love to see his support and what he says on the show, because plenty of us take it in and use it for several different things. So as long as we can have some of those members out there, you know, I know people are hopping on the bandwagon here and there as the season goes on. I was looking at record predictions in the beginning of the year, and a lot of people had the Bills off a few games. CBS Sports, I think, predicted us to go 8-8. So there's only a couple people that are actually still in the running to predict the right record. One of those guys is Marcel Louis-Jacques. He predicted a 12-4 season for the Bills. So hopefully they can finish 13-3 in the regular season. But one thing I think NFL fans look forward to is your comments on Twitter, how you tweet about games, how you tweet about football. Like I said when we introed this podcast, you are very witty, and it comes out on Twitter. It makes people laugh. It makes people chuckle. And I feel like a lot of people can feel like similar to it. They can relate to it. And I think that's one of my favorite things about sports is relating people to the athletes, or relating people to certain things about the sport. So I want to run through a couple different analogies with you, because that's something that I think you also are A1 on. So,
oh boy. Okay.
Number one, watching Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs, their connection is like, complete the sentence.
Oh man. I would say, I always think in food. Stephon Diggs is like the truffle oil on Josh Allen's pasta right now, because, you know, he just makes it that much better. And although, you know, I don't like that one, because truffle oil too much, or it can be excessive. And I don't think there's such thing as too much Stephon Diggs right now. I think he's a top 3 wide receiver in the NFL at the moment.
Maybe cheese fries?
Cheese fry? I know I should do a buffalo. Okay, I'll do a buffalo one.
Blue cheese and wings.
Blue cheese, of course, blue cheese. Yeah. So Josh is the wing and Stephon is the blue cheese.
I like
Josh,
it.
to be clear, flats and blue cheese. So see, I can pander to Dan Orlovsky.
There you go. You've got your buffalo stuff down pat. One more. Watching the Bills smack down the Patriots on Monday Night Football was like.
I'll say this. It's like watching a movie where you already know the ending, because that was not particularly surprising at this point. Maybe earlier in the season there's some questions, but going into that game, I don't think, I mean, we all picked the Bills to win, but it became a question not of can the Bills offense roll or whatever. It's more like, okay, we're looking for, we talked about NFL Live, we're looking for nits to pick, right? Because we're not, at this point, it's not about wins and losses. It's about, can you hang with the Chiefs? Can you beat the Chiefs? And I'll say that Buffalo team certainly looked like they could hang.
Yeah, I completely agree.
I think it was our 5th possession in a row that we had scored points on. I was texting my little group of friends, and I was like, hey, is anyone else bored? Like,
Yeah.
you know, I don't think I've ever done that before during a game. But
Kim, you must have been the most relaxed person in that
I,
suite. Mina, she usually eats a lot of candy when she's nervous in the suite, so maybe there wasn't as much candy
that
consumption.
was the first game that I was anxious before, but like I said, during, you know, I think pretty well into the first quarter there, that was the most relaxed I've been during a game. I will say that. So it was very enjoyable. I want to do it again. I loved it.
Yeah, as a Seahawks fan, I almost never have that sensation. Even as good as the team has been, I'm sure you guys know every game is like chaotic and bizarre. But that's the blowouts. That's when you should start texting the coaches and saying, "Okay, you know, was that an outside zone run?" You know, that's, you know, or you could start call the plays. You know,
Yeah. Hey, Brian,
throwing
can
some
I call
suggestions.
some
Yeah.
from the headset, please?
Yeah, we're up, you know, 30 points. Yeah.
Mina, thanks so much for taking the time to talk with us. Good to hear your insight. Always good to have someone from the national media, national analysts from the outside come in and talk about Buffalo, because then we know we're on the right train of thought if you're saying the same thing that we're saying. So we appreciate the time. Good to talk some Bills. Good to talk some Josh Allen with you.
Right, thank you, Mina.
Bye, guys. Have a great weekend.
Bye.
You too.
Good luck.
The Buffalo Bills are proud to partner with National Grid in promoting the Safety First initiative, where every time Bills safety makes a tackle at home, National Grid will donate $50 to the 100 Club of Buffalo in support of first responders and their families. National Grid reminds you to put safety first in your home with this easy tip. Call Dig Safe at 811 before you dig in your yard to check for underground power lines and pipes. Kim, we're hoping 2021 brings lots of Bills wins and a return to normalcy for all of us. But let's take a look back at this 2020 season. So many fun highlights, so many fun games. If you were to think back on the 12 wins that we've had throughout this season so far, still got one more regular season game left. What are some of your favorite highlights of the season so far?
Well, Maddie, as I'm getting older and my memory is starting to fade on me, I'm going to say one of them has to be the Monday night game in New England, beating the Pats soundly, I would say, and really putting that stake in to say the Bills have arrived on national TV. So I'm going to say that has certainly been one of the highlights of 2020. It came very late in the year, but certainly just as meaningful. Listen, you know, our fan base knows, and I've been to many a Patriots game and hosted them here. This was just something that, you know, just this franchise had to deal with year in, year out for so many years. And not only just beating the Patriots, like, you know, because listen, any team on any given day, as we all know, can get beaten. But to do it in a way that really showed to the rest of the country in the football world, like we are a legitimate team, and get the respect that I think we got Monday night. I think that's certainly a highlight.
Yeah, I looked at that game as a highlight as well, and it's kind of a bummer. I know we've thought this team has been really great for the entire season, but it's kind of a bummer that it took until week 16 for like some national media to really understand how legit this team is. And it's not like we've had 1 o'clock kicks all season, because we've had our fair share of primetime games the last 6 weeks. We like haven't played at 1 o'clock at all. This week is our last 1 o'clock game. Of course, it's the last game of the season, but the last 6 weeks, 5 weeks, I want to say, have been Sunday, Saturday, or Monday games, Sunday night games, I mean. So they've had their fair share to get a look at this team, but I'm glad it happened this season to where people really started to respect the Buffalo Bills. And I think one of those games also that helped, and one highlight that I look back to this year, was the Seattle Seahawks win. That's playing against.
Oh, you took my Maddie. We're thinking alike here. That
right?
Was my next
a
game.
great team, a great quarterback in Russell Wilson. He is one of the OGs in the league. He's not the OG because there's definitely older quarterbacks, but he has definitely solidified his name into the conversation of great quarterbacks in his era and in the NFL right now. And so to put 44 points up on the Seahawks and beat him and have Josh Allen look better than Russell Wilson in that game, I think that was a statement win for this team. I also think about Josh Allen's first 400-yard passing game, because I think that's when it happened in week 2 against the Dolphins. And that was very early in the season. And I think that's when a lot of people were like, oh, okay, so we're going to be a passing offense this season and we're going to wreck teams through the air and it's going to work out, because Josh Allen's deep ball has just been incredible this season and the reason why we're scoring so many points. So those are a couple highlights in my mind. Patriots game 2, even the first Patriots game when we won on that last minute play, that forced fumble by Justin Zimmer and Dean Marlowe recovered it in the fourth quarter. So those are a couple highlights in my mind, I think.
I totally agree with you on the Seattle Seahawks game, because I think that game, I felt like we're good. Like it brought, maybe the whole, national attention maybe wasn't as confirmed that we're really a legitimate team. But I think for me, that game was like, listen, we just soundly beat and at that time, Seattle had been on a roll. And for us, a quarterback in Russell Wilson, the team the way they were playing, the teams that they had beaten previously, and for us to come in there, I think for me, that was one of those moments where like, wow, we're good. Like we can really do some damage this year. And as I looked upon the schedule at the beginning of the season, and it was like, oh my goodness, we have such a tough schedule.
Yes.
And I know we had some night games, and then we had, the adjustments when we had to play Tennessee, and the whole COVID and the pandemic thrown in there, and we've had some time changes. And like you said, all the travel that we've had to do, the amount of West Coast games that we've had, I was, you were just like, okay, to deal with these things one thing at a time. But I will tell you that we have been able to pull it off. Listen, like I said, going back to what a great foundation this team and this organization has had and building on it, all these things that on the surface together look like a huge hill to climb. We've just been slow and steady in getting through them. And here we are, last week of the regular season with a secured home playoff game with number 2 seeding on the line, I guess, maybe in the last week. Like, it's a good problem to have.
It's a great problem to have. And the Bills just need to win to be able to secure that number 2 seed. Right now, they have secured at least the number 3 seed. So they need to win. If they lose, which I don't think they will. Hopefully they don't. I believe in this team. But if they do lose, they need a couple things to happen possibly for them to still get that number 2 seed. So speaking of week 17 and how the last regular season game is upon us, how do you think this team needs to put the stamp to finalize the 2020 regular season?
Well, I think it's going to be, obviously, we need to secure that second seed. I think that really, listen, previous years we just made the playoffs and we made the playoffs, but like really securing the number 2 seed, I think is going to be really big. And again, I think is representative of where this team is. As we talked in our interview, the Chiefs there, we're kind of there, right? Like, that's where the battle is going to be. And that's where, you hope. This is what you're always chasing. You want to be where that Super Bowl champion was from the previous year. So to be in those conversations, I think we need to be that second seed. So I think that is going to be very important to do that. Obviously, then going into the postseason completely and really truly making a run. I think we just need to keep improving on what we've been. Talk about our defense has gotten better. In the beginning of the year, our offense really took over, but our defense has been doing so much better over the course of the last several games, getting, even, putting up points on defense, which we hadn't done a lot of at the beginning of the season. So I think that is going to be important, just to not get ahead of ourselves, to keep building on the things that we've been doing well, and then having fun and enjoying it. So that's what I plan on doing it. When I say enjoy it, you know what I mean.
Yeah, you just enjoy it by hoping that when kick comes around, like your anxiety can just leave your body and you can feel as relaxed as you did during that Patriots game.
I certainly am looking forward to it, but a lot to be excited for in 2020. What a great way for sports, for football to really be there for you when you need it the most in this challenging year. And I've always said that about sports in general, like how it just transcends so many things. And certainly this Buffalo Bills team has given a lot of our fans, people in our community who are hurt and challenged and struggling through so many things, a ray of hope. I know it's only football, but I think just what this team represents has been a shining light for our community.
Yeah, I think sports brings so much joy, so much hope, and so much unity to the world. There is nothing else in this world that exists other than sports where people can come together from all different backgrounds, being raised in all different ways, being all different types of ethnicities, having different religious, political beliefs, and come together and cheer for something. Like, that doesn't happen in today's day and age, and we have seen how that hasn't happened this year play out in a lot of different ways. But if you're talking about sports and you're the fan of the same team, you can relate to each other based on, you know, what player is doing well, or just relate to each other on cheering for the same team. And I think that's so wonderful and so amazing. It's why I'm in this industry. It's why I work in the business. It's why I work for sports, is because of the joy I think it brings to so many people. And man, has it brought joy to so many people in a year where it's been a tough year for a lot of people. And thankfully they've been able to flip on the TV on Sundays or Mondays or Tuesdays, whenever we've had to play football games this year, and sit back and relax and get their mind off of whatever they've been thinking about from 9 to 5, and just sit and enjoy a football game. So I'm really thankful that this season has been able to happen on time, as planned, with very few changes and moves.
Yes, well, I met Mina last year at Super Bowl. No clue what was going to happen for the whole year. So I will say that you never know. In 2021, no promises, no guarantees.
Yeah, seriously.
But it's just like we were able to get through 2020. I'm confident that, we will still be here come 2022. Whatever happens, we will be able to get through it. A lot can happen in a year, in a month, in a week. So I am not going to fret about it, and just keep going forward. In 2021, here we come.
Amen. We all got a lot stronger this year, that is for sure. That segment was brought to you by the Buffalo Store. They are also this week's game sponsor. The Buffalo Store is the official retailer of the Buffalo Bills. All right, Kim, I think that does it for us for this week's podcast. Next year, it's going to be, or next episode, it'll be a new year. So we hope everyone has a safe and a happy New Year's. I know it's not going to be the New Year's that a lot of us were thinking of or hoping of, but keep it safe. It's okay if we have to celebrate just a couple people or by ourselves, because hopefully next year everyone will be throwing epic parties to ring in 2022. It will be.
All right, thank you, Maddy. Happy New Year's, everyone.
Thanks, Kim. We'll see you next week. Stay tuned for many more awesome guests as we continue on with Bills Pod Squad, brought to you by New York Lottery. Thanks, everyone.